Adventure time. The colorful land of Oo, where it feels like imagination literally comes to life. You name it, fantastical lands and kingdoms, like a land made entirely of candy down to the citizens, to massive landscapes of ice and fire and whole other magical races and people, even entire wizard cities. It feels like a dream come true, a perfect fantasy land of endless adventure that everyone wants to go to. But that's not the case. Adventure Time is one of the darkest and messed up worlds I've seen in a kids show. This isn't a world of fantasy. It's a post-apocalypse where humanity nearly escaped extinction and the world is a result of a millennia of mutation and drastic evolution to make a new world. Plenty of traces of the old world exist, but it's not man's world anymore. Humanity was forced to flee this world to isolated islands to survive, being constantly hunted and slaughtered by the numerous monstrosities that now inhabit the land. So yeah, this dream is really a nightmare. But I'm not making a why it sucks to live in Adventure Time video. Yet at least. But Adventure Time is some of the coolest and creepiest selection of monsters I've seen and insanely diverse to boot. I really gotta hand it to the designers and writers to mix a wide variety of creatures and monsters to inhabit this show in its hundreds of episodes. And some can be considered iconic. So you know what, I'm gonna dedicate a video to the monsters of the show. All the evil, creepy, disgusting, and disturbing abominations that call Oo home. And rank them against each other on which are the most disturbing. And we got a ton of monsters to get to, so let's get into it. Now Adventure Time in its 10 season run has had a ton, and I mean a ton of monsters. So I clearly can't get through all in a single video. So if I missed any, please tell me in the comments. But in this show, it's hard to really clarify what's a monster or not. So for the purpose of the video, they had to be openly malicious and have some messed up aspect about them, you could classify them as a monster with no hesitation. Because with so many creatures in Oo that are messed up physically but not too much emotionally, it's hard to really call them actually disturbing. So like no lemon children or goblin folk or shoko or anything. Also the blanket girls were incredibly disturbing, but they're not hostile so they don't count. Also no, let's end this video because yeah, it's too obvious. Gulp too, I struggle to call him actually evil, he's a force of the universe. Now I was wondering how I should approach this in terms of full-on disturbingness or threat level, but I'm going to prioritize how disturbing the creature is because else it just becomes ranking by who it can be in a fight, which is pretty lame. But obviously how threatening it is in a fight will account to how messed up the creature is. Starting out with the F tier, monsters that really aren't disturbing at all and have a minimal, if even existent, threat at all. Starting off with the most harmless, the piglets. For something said to be horribly evil, they're really not too bad. One of the 3 entities spawned by the magic bean pods, they play all coy and adorable, which they are, but eventually use the wands in another pod to attack the mushroom town, leading Finjake to kill them all with ice cream. Honestly, I feel they did more damage to the town, but they still mostly just make people dance or change their color. And honestly, any power they do have is from the wands they got. On their own, they're completely harmless and too adorable. Only by their nature said to be the spawn of evil do they count, so they get the lowest rung of F tier. Then the snow creatures. Usually Ice Kings go to spawn in combat, these things can only be barely accounted as effective in the least. Basically no more dangerous than any other snowman that isn't Jack Frost. The scary one or the intensely scary one. But still, they can barely attack and are incredibly slow and are dealt with by the simplest attacks. The only threat factor they have is possibly in numbers or if you're made out of fire. This is definitely not counting some of the Ice King's other constructs, but these foot soldiers, as it were, I think your average penguin is scarier. Then, hair apes. Found in the dungeon train, these apes may seem threatening with their electrical powers and ape anatomy. I mean, nothing scarier than a mad chimp. They use their hair to charge static electricity to attack, but it's literally just as harmful as static shock. And they're super easy to kill as practically touching them will explode them into hair. Though they were the first boss in Secret of the Nameless Kingdom, as in a monster fight in Link to the Past where you gotta smack their butts to defeat them. Another Zelda staple, weirdly. The only disturbing thing about them is their emotional manipulation. Not cool, dude. And lastly, the Fool. I wasn't sure where to lump all the vampires in one group, but I'll make an exception for the individuals we see because they really need to be ranked separately. Especially this guy. This Simpsons looking mapper somehow got into the Vampire King's court and I have no idea why. He lives up to his name, being a weird gnome guy who's a complete naive idiot who has absolutely no idea what's going on nor a care in the world. He also has no self-preservation instinct, casually dying twice without a fight. His only ability is really to levitate, and Marceline stealing his essence gave her his ability, but that's it. There's absolutely nothing disturbing or threatening about this guy aside that he has to like drink human blood. If you die to this guy, you deserve it. Now for the D tiers, the monsters that definitely have some disturbing aspect, but mostly are simplistic or not too overtly threatening. Barely anything than just your average creature threat. starting with hug wolves. Presumably some subspecies of werewolves, instead of seeking out prey to maul and devour, they're overwhelmed by a fearsome urge to hug everything in sight. Yeah, I can't even say they're a physical threat, as Finn describes the hugging as very gentle. Now, this would be F tier if it wasn't for the fact that it's a trait that can be passed down, like lycanthropy. Effectively, whatever being is hugged by an alpha hug wolf on a full moon, their victim becomes a beta hug wolf every night, suffering major psychological damage and inducing the transformation. The only known cure was found in the eponymous episode where the beta has to outhug the alpha to cure both. Yeah, one of the weirder concepts of the show, and that's saying a lot, but I get to the bottom of D tier. Also, ooh is a damn bestiary? I want to read that so bad. Then, Evil Signpost. Found in the spooky dark forest, they camouflage as signs but swarm and attack with wooden limbs. But that's really it, there's nothing else. They're really easy to kill too, just being reanimated wood. The only disturbing aspect would be how they take you by surprise, but that's it, the most basic of a monster you got. Next, the snake-armed ruby brain beast. Another one of the residents of the spooky dark forest. This hydra-like creature seems to be comprised of many snakes make up its body that try to snap and bite foes. But there's really not much to it aside from being a rather big monster. Hell, it has a really easy to spot weakness for the ruby in its back. The only disturbing factor can come from its appearance, which is pretty gnarly but easy enough to get over. And let's continue this rank with yet another creature from the dark forest. This place certainly has a lot of winners. With the Wall of Flesh, my Terraria senses are tingling. This thing is definitely unsightly, being a wriggling mass of flesh, eyes, limbs, and mouth. Seemingly carnivorous as well, disguising itself on the floor and trapping prey to eat. Its design though is the most disturbing part, but we see it's not too hard to defeat, as getting her will make it flee. Again, design and concept wise, it's gross, but it's probably just a more messed up slime. And let's end this with a monster not from the Dark Forest, but the Vault of Bones, home to some specific skeleton variant, the Goose Skulls. Skeletons seemingly reanimated by slime, they can be considered a threat, but their attitude is very simplistic and a bit goofy. Not to mention their easily exploited fire weakness. Though the massive chainsaw man looking one is the dungeon boss is definitely elevated, seemingly sealing away Finn to consume him. He doesn't really earn too many disturbing points, giving is somewhat easily intimidated to backing off. Now to C tier, the much more messed up monsters and creatures from power level to actually disturbing and messed up factors. Not too much to truly disturb and traumatize, but enough to definitely qualify them as messed up monsters. Some of these aren't just by appearance, but by personality and attitude as well, and we're gonna see a lot more going forward. Starting lower with the dragons. Gotta say, Adventure Time is one of the most unorthodox dragon designs I've ever seen, looking more like a deformed salamander with a weird elongated body, small wings, and especially weird gill-like bulbs in their neck. I kinda love it though. Dragons are in a weird space between monster and sapient being, as at least some are known to talk, but also are tameable, at least by the goblins, but more importantly are a known danger, threatening and consuming people multiple times. So yeah, this ain't how to train your dragon. These things will eat you and burn you alive. Granted, this one got an extremely excruciating death. Definitely the lower end of disturbing, but its design and carnivory I feel puts it up here. Now, Sleepy Sam. I don't know how much this counts, but Sleepy Sam was seemingly the final boss of the game Guardians of the Sunshine, which made Finn and Jake somehow virtualize themselves to fight him and barely managed to escape the game alive. However, he and the other bosses followed them out, and though they don't want to kill the two after getting the sunlight they wanted, they didn't want to kill Bimo for trapping them this whole time. Now, this has insane implications. Either Bimo's programming is so great that the enemies actually have sapience and are trapped in a I have no mouth and I must scream situation, or potentially like Finn and Jake where they captured and forced to become bosses? What? Also, we're going to acknowledge that Bimo can just virtualize and trap people in cyberspace. Why did Mo program this? Yeah, that is an insanely messed up implication, not to mention Sam has a propensity to eating people alive, but since it's mostly just suggested, C tier. I speed, no! Now this is a cool ice construct. Definitely the most threatening one and possibly the most messed up. Well, aside from this weird rhino thing they never explained, I'm concerned how it has fleshy organs, ew. It's its most powerful guard in its tower, and it's a giant centipede with freaking laser guns. Disturbingly, it rarely seems to use it and prefers to literally just crush an opponent's head to kill them. And nearly does to Finn if Nectar didn't save him with some poison berry pie and presumably kill it. Man, remember when Finn actually cared about Nectar? It was so long ago. But yeah, if a carnivorous laser centipede monster that will squash your skull with its mandibles isn't disturbing, I don't know what is. And if Lights of Steel or Garbage is canon, then he has a lot more where that came from. Next, Bucket Knight. I assume a cousin to Shovel Knight. One of the challenges in the dungeon of the Crystal Eye, at first being very small and challenging Finn to equal combat, which he refused and just ran past him. He has a magical ability where he should be called Sponge Knight, where being soaked with water, he grows giant and powerful. But when Finn admits that he has no magical powers, Bucket Knight grins and then tries to kill him anyway. And that's kind of the thing that gets him here. Like, he puts up a front of honor but has no problem trying to kill a practically defenseless kid. And he has the advantage of laughing sadistically. This guy is totally a part of the Order of No Quarter. And he really did beat the crap out of Finn with his size and strength and only barely escaped alive. And he never was defeated. This guy is pretty messed up, but not to really get him higher. Still not a guy I'd ever want to fight. Then, the Tentacle Monster. This monstrous abomination guards the Mystery Dungeon, holding the ancient Magi of life-giving. And it's very hostile, attacking our group of unwilling adventurers, and nearly kills Lemongrab, but kills it with his very life juice getting in its giant eyes. Yeah. Now, this thing has like 20 seconds of screen time, but Jesus, look at that thing, it has to get up here. In a similar case, the Heart Beast. Created by the Dark Magician to test Finn to get the Enchiridion, it's one of the most abstract monsters in the show, being a heart with a towel and plasma skeleton hand. According to the Dark Magician, it is undeniably and completely evil, so yeah, no moral high ground here. It was also a boss in the LEGO Dimension game, weirdly enough, but I gotta give it some points for being the only monster in the show that literally exploded with blood. Like, holy shit, how did this get past the censors? Especially after... well, if you know, you know. Granted, we'll be getting a lot more blood and gore in a particular spin-off continuation. I mean, I gotta give this serving points for that, like, geez. Now, the Grumbo, named brilliantly by the amazing Huntress Wizard. This was a synthetic beast made by Uncle Gumball to sabotage the Candy Kingdom's security by abducting the Banana Guards. Its sheer size and power makes it a worthy foe, not to mention its complete savage and feral nature that Finn and Huntress were forced to slay it. Granted, it was kind of easy with all it needing is a good stab. This thing is an uncanny feel too, kind of feeling too much like an animal for an Adventure Time monster. I would rank it higher though if they didn't weenie out and the Grumbo wasn't killing or devouring the Banana Guards but just peeling and storing them. Boo! Now, the Cyclops. In the Enchiridion, Finn reads about the healing tears of a Cyclops that can heal his broken leg, and goes out to find it. But after inadvertently hurting so many innocents in his rash actions, he doesn't even want to find it. Just to find it. The Cyclops, though, gladly announces that it's evil and refuses to let Finn leave without a fight, just to brutally beat him to near death with a single punch, then demanding he beg for mercy before he kills them. This guy means serious business. If Finn wasn't able to trick him to punch his eye to get healed by his tears, he'd probably be dead. This guy's whole attitude is messed up, like, dude, what's your problem? Next, the Tree of Blight. We don't know much about it, but it's giving quite the presence, as the duo explains it only shows up every 100 years to spew out evil spores across the land. Doesn't give us much to work off of, but it's treated as a genuine threat that Finn and Jake had to stop at all costs, if the Hug Wolf didn't intervene. But Jake destroyed it as the Emperor scared off the wolf. But after she was cured, she somehow turned into the tree, and the episode just ends. Yeah, really, what the hell was that? This implies the tree has some sort of messed up assimilatory effect and can take over victims' bodies. That's super disturbing. No wonder the two were so determined to exterminate it. Seriously, what's with the ending? Next, Wirewolves. Curiously, we never see an actual werewolf in this show, but we do know they beat Nietzsche Ubermensch and Mandroid.
Who would win in a fight between Nietzsche's Ubermensch and Mandroid? Werewolf Queen, it's always Werewolf Queen!
Well, actually the comics kind of go into it, but they're a step up from Hugwolves being actually vicious monsters, creatures possessed with the spirit of inquiry and bloodlust. Now, they're not too different from a standard werewolf, except they are quite intelligent yet feral. They are perfectly aware of their role as vicious predators and happy when Finn sabotages their little ecosystem to divide like crazy until they get devoured by the cosmic owl. Somehow. Not to mention they're really unruly design, especially this dude with the two cyclopean heads. Now this one I'm kind of confused about because it's the most abstract character in this video that I can't tell how much is actually real or not. The Rat King. Appearing in the super underrated episode Little Brother. Like, seriously, this episode has such an amazing aesthetic. Kent first finds the creature going into the depths of the treehouse, finding it gnawing and poisoning its roots before getting mysteriously defeated and saved by the Doodah people, who tell him that it was the Rat King, an evil entity trying to destroy the tree, like a mini version of Ratatoskir. Thus being Kent ventured through trials to forge an enchanted sword to combat it. Punch Party. This episode feels very allegorical in a weird way, hard to tell how much is real. Kent declining true love, immortality, and endless riches for justice. Upon facing the Rat King, we see its true form, some kind of horrific rat amalgam wrapped in shadows, yeesh. The Rat King is also very intelligent, trying to make Kent give up his quest and joining him, offering him cosmic power. How does a rat have that? Though Kent was victorious in depowering and defanging the Rat King, it's seriously unknown how much of that is real. but if it is, the Rat King is seriously one of the most interesting and unknown characters in the show, and it's easy to feel uneasy around him. Now, Magwood. Magwood is an ancient creature that lived during the Mesozoic era, targeted by Master Evergreen for its crystal eyes to power his crown to stop the meteorite. Magwood is also a mysterious creature, never really getting an origin, but seeming mystical, almost primordial in nature, which gives it a certain uneasy presence. Except when he's small, look at him, he's so freaking cute! This thing is so powerful and ferocious that it nearly even killed Master Evergreen, the most powerful ice elemental we see in the show, aside from elemental patience. If Gunther didn't distract him, he'd probably be dead. Not that he'd ever admit it, of course. But even that didn't stop it, as if by fate itself, Evergreen's attempt was thwarted as Magwood didn't die but harden. Also, he really looks like tree trunks for some reason. Connection? Still violent, thrashing about and sabotaging the crown and crippling Evergreen, forcing Gunther to use the crown and basically set up the entire story of Adventure Time. But yeah, though we know little about Magwood, its sheer primordial power and mystery of its creation and its undying and vicious nature and effect on the show, to me elevates it up quite a bit. Simple plant monster. This one's pretty simple, introduced as a prank by Marceline. Appearing as an adorable plant that gives you dimples if you eat the fruit, you never suspect it being any sort of danger, hence why Marceline demanded Finn kill it. But it turns out that that's a complete farce, as it will quickly grow into a massive spindly monster that's very carnivorous. Something about that is messed up. It's basically a giant version of carnivorous plants luring prey, appearing harmless to transform and devour unsuspecting people. I'm just imagining coming across it and it kinda creeps me out. Luckily, it's very easily killed if you know the weakness, but still, that bait and switch is so unsettling. Speaking of sudden turns, there's the infamous monster found in the Dungeon of the Crystal Eye, the Guardian Angel. Seemingly, they approach dungeon goers in the guise of a heavenly angel as a protective spirit to save them from danger, actually being the one to save Finn's life when he was cornered by the demon cat. But soon after, the facade fade, revealing this, yeesh, and they prepares to eat her victims. I feel the Guardian Angel is really infamous for its surprise reveal with the grotesque face, and just after feeling a bit of relief with Finn nearly escaping the imminent danger. But no, he was just taken by another predator. And it all seemed to work on Jake, who apparently had just as bad a time like Finn did, with both working together to make an escape and seemingly kill her by crushing her with her own cage. Though she makes a cameo in the suitor, so maybe she survived? Or it's another one. She also seemingly has unknown powers, knowing Finn's name, having some type of healing touch, skill at the xylophone, and other such magic, so who knows her real potential. I say that mind games are really a key to making a monster more disturbing, and this lady definitely counts. With her power of unsettling deception and her grotesque true appearance, this angel protection was really an angel of death. But she doesn't end the rank. There's one I feel are more disturbing. The gladiator ghosts. The main threat of those trapped in the Vikings arena. They at first seem like simple warriors for newcomers to challenge. Huge buff warriors with their weaponry, but they luckily don't take too much to kill. But it's their story that's genuinely disturbing. Eventually defeating all the ghosts, the Viking demands that Finn slay his partner Jake, revealing the same thing happened to all the other warriors trapped. These partners, confirmed to even be lovers, were forced to kill each other to survive, as only one could escape, but even then, both perished to become the Viking slaves. Now eternally crying in grief and agony of slaughtering their loved ones or being betrayed. In fact, you can even see their grievous wounds match the others' weaponry. It's brutal. At least with the Vikings' death, they were all freed and Finn broke the cycle. Now, that's seriously messed up and disturbing, one of the most disturbing stories in the show, but granted it's taken in subtext, they never outright say it or show it, even if it doesn't take too much to piece it together, which is why it's lower here, but still, super disturbing. Now to the B tier, the gruesome, disgusting horrors that lie in the land of Vu, the unsung abominations that are just below traumatizing, the creatures that make you glad you're nowhere near this fantasy land of nightmares. Starting with another monster from the Dungeon of the Crystal Eye, the Flaming Eyeballs. If anyone takes the Crystal Eye, these things emerge in the area and they're so hot they melt anything remotely close to them. Finn and Jake being both entirely melee, they have no defense and are straight up accepting their death if PBX Machina didn't show up at the last second. Honestly, I have a feeling that the Dungeon of the Crystal Eye intentionally preys and warps itself around an adventurer's weakness. For Finn, it preyed obviously on the lack of having a dog companion, magic, and his overall impulsiveness. Jake preyed on his animal instinct and lack of focus or common sense. And when both were together, its final challenge was eyeball creatures that couldn't be touched and none of them had any defense or weapons against. Kind of interesting, I like this approach. But yeah, as well as that, just, you know, Giant melty flamey eyes that want to kill you and are basically untouchable are one of the most disturbing creatures of this world, but still low on this tier. Now Goliad. PB in her infinite wisdom decides to make an heir in case she ever dies. And for reasons only known to her, figured the best way to do so was to make a cloned candy Sphinx made for her own DNA with immense psychic abilities and immortality. However, Goliad pretty quickly falls into megalomania, wonder where she got that from, quickly losing any and all empathy for living beings despite being less than a day old, and decides to take over the kingdom by force, treating all the citizens as just pawns and terrorizing them with their mind reading and telekinesis. Not to mention that creepy ass eye they have using their powers. Ew, even Jake thinks so.
Ugh, that eyeball. Just tuck that eyeball back in its hole.
Which also does hurt them emotionally, so I guess just being really mean to them in your thoughts is a way to harm them. But to add to that, PB made Goliad so powerful that the only way to possibly stop her is to make another Sphinx with the same abilities, this time with Finn's heroic DNA, making Stormo, locking them in eternal psychic stalemate. But Goliad basically will remain in this state until the end of time. Pray nothing interrupts them. Yeah, PB accidentally made one of the biggest threats to her kingdom and possibly the land of Oo, a terrifying, unkillable Sphinx with such incredible psychic powers and no regard for any other life. Another monster involving PB is the reptilian replicant. This, I don't even get like at all. It's not the focus of the episode, literally it's just Finn, Jake, BMO, and Banana Man fixing up a truck they found. But BMO heard a conspiracy that PB was replaced with an evil lizard. And driving to the kingdom where citizens are revolting against her, freaking finally. Oh, wait, it's because of that lizard thing. However, BMO proves it's true as it turns to a weird kaiju and they kill it by exploiting the truck. And the real PB comes out and there's absolutely no explanation whatever the f that thing was.
And Jake, reptilian synthoid replicants are trying to take over the kingdom!
What is it? Where did it come from? Why was it pretend to be PB? Literally none of it is explained or mentioned again. But that makes whatever the lizard was all the more disturbing. This thing has no explanation or origin. It's just a demented shapeshifter trying to take someone's identity and goes on a rampage when found out. What the hell is this? Now, the dungeon monster. The final challenge in Joshua's dungeon for his kids. The dungeon monster is a massive behemoth. You never really get to know its size, but we do see it as a large tentacle body ending in spikes with long gnarled hands, bright jagged teeth, and a large crystal eye. The final challenge is to defeat the behemoth, and Joshua remarks it's so evil that even he had trouble putting it in there. And then it takes them and possibly kills them? I don't know, since Finn and Jake say they buried him, but they treat it like he's still there. It's weird. Joshua's death is really vague, but still it's the final challenge to getting the demon blood sword. But the most disturbing thing about it is that it just laughs. And it keeps laughing and laughing, especially taking sadistic pleasure beating its foes and even slaying him.
This world for you. This message.
Granted, Joshua's emotional manipulation did a good job beating him to the punch. At least Finn was able to slay it, but still, this thing is super off-putting to say the least. But still not the most stressful thing Joshua put in his dungeon. The Grass Demon, or the Emissary from Beyond. When Finn first got the cursed grass sword, he had a nightmare of the grass sword consuming his essence, but seemingly was avoided once Finn accepted and mastered the curse. But it wasn't passive, it was waiting. When Finn broke the Finn sword with the blade, the curse found a new target, that Finn, and did its work to make it its new vessel. Even its attitude is creepy.
I am worrying about you. Dude, stop this.
It's okay. I just gotta do something here. 1 sec.
Then creating Fern, the grass version of Finn. But this wasn't an act of goodwill, as the demon was taking Finn as a host, and slowly began to corrupt him, heightening his negative emotions and resentment to the real Finn, turning him evil and actively trying to murder his counterpart. Just a reminder, Finn is the reincarnation of the Catalyst Comet of good, and this thing managed to corrupt him, good lord. Fern could never be free as long as the grass demon had his hold on him, but even killing it would just kill Fern, being the perfect case of, if I die, I'm taking you down with me. No wonder this thing went to hell. For corrupting Finn of all people and creating so much of the pain Fern went through and so much of the plot, they get here. The vampires. Just the main species lumped together for this. Curiously, the vampires were not a product of the Mushroom War, like most of the other monsters, so no I Am Legend stuff going on here. But they were hiding in secret until the fall of civilization led them to finally make their assault on the remaining humans, driving them to near extinction. Hell, it's the reason why the animal mask became a staple in their society to hide and protect themselves. According to Marceline, their crimes to humanity were so great they deserved to be staked 1,000 times over. These creatures have killed thousands, if not millions, of surviving humans after the war and nearly finished off all of them if it wasn't for Marceline. And we see in Fiona and Cake the horrible alternative future where Marceline was raised not by Simon, who was killed, but by the Vampire King becoming the star and his greatest weapon, nearly eradicating all of humanity and fundamentally destroying the world and any resistance left over. And their tactics and ferocity is fully on screen, unlike anything seen in the main show, making this the most disturbing alternate future the gang found themselves in. well, okay, the second. But those are just the average vampires, as many manifest their own incredible powers as part of the Vampire King's court. Starting with the Hierophant. The Hierophant is known for his unique ability of his incredible shape-shifting, able to turn into anything but preferring horrific animals or chimeric abominations. Well, except his mustache and boots, those are unnegotiable. He's the most feral member of the court, not even bothering to try and make a land for himself, but live in the dark woods as a creature. And fittingly enough, was the only member actively hunting down Marceline. He is also the most traitorous, actively resenting the Vampire King's notion of a new age of vampires and offering a union between he and Marceline to destroy them. Well, until he doesn't. But the worst thing about him is, he's a boomer, obsessed with keeping the old traditional ways and can adapt, being the only vampire who subjugated to the classic rule, which leads to his death. Though he has more weaknesses than the others of the Vampire King's court, but still his feral, ruthless nature and his horrific shapeshifting puts him this high on the list. And another of the court, the Empress.
Hello, Simon.
The Empress's ability is invisibility, as well as hypnotism, which she does with her massive eyes. Interestingly, she's the one vampire that Marceline has personal beef with and resents, as she enslaved Simon years ago, but curiously never made him a thrall. Though yeah, there was a time where Marceline and Simon had to fight vampires and the Empress, which is never elaborated on further, and god I wish it did, that sounds so cool. And goes to basically do the same when she got resurrected, also controlling the ice skin to get Finn to consume. And believe me, Marceline did not appreciate what she was doing to basically her father figure.
Please, Simon, remember our history.
A what now?
However, it's revealed that he's just simping for her and he's too insane and thick to be hypnotized. The giant kind to return its method of hypnotism immunity. But what elevates her more than the Hierophant is not only her complete lack of empathy, highly puppeting people for her own amusement, and her inflated sense of self-worth, fitting for someone called the Empress, but also that she plays mind games, actively digging into Marceline's resentment and failings with her connection to Simon.
If you really cared about him, why'd you let him degenerate into this pathetic clown character? He was happier then, you know, when he was serving me.
And it makes me think that technically Marceline has her hypnotism ability, but never uses it after what she did to Simon. And nearly getting a victory if it wasn't for another PBX Machina. Honestly, I wish this character got explored more because the subtext of them I felt is a lot of missed potential. But still, a vampire psychic is nothing to mess with. But that's nothing compared to another demented psychic. King Worm. King Worm was first seen in Evicted, but that's nothing compared to the eponymous episode. It's a complete drug trip where Finn and Dick are trapped in an ever-expanding nightmare, not sure what's real or not. Like seriously, this is the trippiest episode of the entire show, and that's saying so much. But it's revealed it's all done by King Worm. The two are trying to make any sense and escape the hellscape as their lives are in danger, as the longer they're in, the more King Worm absorbs their life until they die. And in the dream world, he's king. And let me tell you, this is one creepy MFer. The only known way to defeat him is to beat him at his own game, letting your fears and nightmares destroy the dreamscape and in turn destroy him. In order to save your own life, you have to live out your worst nightmares. And even then, the worm is in pretty horrific state, possibly close to dying. Yeah, what the hell is this episode? King Worm is one of the most unsettling monsters, basically the Freddy Krueger of Adventure Time. For the love of God, don't fall asleep. Gary the Mermaid Queen, you know, that thing. Inhabiting the Trash River, this disgusting skeletal abomination calls herself the Mermaid Queen of the River, despite not looking like any of the mermaids we see in the show. But she is one of the most unsettling and disgusting designs of the show, and that's saying a lot. Even Finn said,
how do I say you're the grossest thing ever without offending you?
She'd get on this list immediately for just saying this to a 12-year-old kid.
Which one of you mortals wants to mate with all this?
What the hell was season 1, guys? But she goes hostile immediately, apparently knowing black magic, tarring up Finn and going to feed into her batch of strange carnivorous bird children, taking express delight. She such a threat that it forces Jake, who had absolutely no intention of getting his powers back, to do so just to save Finn. Gary is one of the weirdest yet unsightly monsters in the show, and I wish he came back in another appearance. I will literally say this until the end of time, but an episode where she tries to take over the Rag & Bone Kingdom and Raggedy Princess goes to Neptune for help would be the greatest episode ever. Oh, I want it so bad. Still though, everything about this character is disturbing. I mean literally everything. The only thing above her in this tier is actual damn nightmare fuel. And lastly, to end this tier, a monster that has traumatized a generation in the show and in real life, Lub Glubs. Yeah. Seeking to retake Utopia, Susan warns the two of horrible monsters called the Lub Glubs that took over the human tribe's previous home. Then sees that they're just pool toys, as Dick assumes it's just Susan being crazy. Until... Jesus Christ, that design! Dark blobby horrors only defined by their horrible human teeth, showing that they slaughtered and devoured the previous human tribe. It's to do the same to the trio. Their design and attitude is so unsettling and creepy and feel like a nightmare literally come to life. They have no origin or speculation. They're just monsters. These things got Susan, one of the strongest characters in this show, completely terrified, and for good reason. Even worse, when they seem to be able to assimilate to each other as this horrifying abomination rises from the water to stop them. Not to mention their noises. The only thing known to kill them is immense light, enough to illuminate a huge structure, which could be why they disguise themselves as pool toys, not only to catch prey off guard, but to offer light protection. Yeah, what can I say? These things are legitimately traumatizing, and I wouldn't be surprised if they gave kids nightmares. I remember promos expressly hiding the Love Glob's true nature just to terrify viewers when watching. Hell, it literally inspired an actual horror game to use them as an enemy in Spooky's Jump Scare Mansion. We don't know what they are or where they came from, but what we do know is they're absolutely horrifying. Now to the A tier, the most nightmarish monsters in the show. Fundamentally disturbing on multiple levels, oftentimes visually or by sheer animosity or ruthlessness, and practically guaranteed to traumatize. Starting with Princess Bubblegum. Okay, I couldn't help it. Last PB joke of the vid, I swear. Starting off with the Demon Cat. This guy is a super effed up in every way I haven't really seen replicated. They were the first genuine threat to Finn trekking to the Chamber of the Crystal Eye. Already disturbing from the get-go with its weird cute cat tongue almost like a predator lure, as well as its creepy design. Its blue lean skin, its levitating limbs, and especially the weird veins wrapping to its tail. Kinda looks like Mewtwo. But the thing about it is it can talk, with the voice of Clancy Brown no less, Mr. Krabs himself.
And I'm the thing you should be afraid of.
But he also is near omniscient, knowing almost everything to an approximate degree. But the thing that really drives him up here is his sheer sadism, threatening and lauding over Finn. It was going to kill and maim him.
Going to slay you and munch on your eyeballs. Unzip your skin and wear you like a little coat.
And once he does not hold back on sheer feral ferocity, effortlessly thrashing Finn, and only stops killing him because he smelled Jake on him and is terrified of dogs. And really shook Finn's resolve in the dungeon, only barely surviving, which only got worse the more Finn dives into admitting that he's struggling without Jake, right next to the lair of the cat who hears everything, relishing that Finn is completely defenseless. And Finn, battered and beaten, can only hide as the cat relishes his hunt and I was going to kill him.
He's not here, which means I'm going to rip your heart out. I know exactly where you might be, Jin.
He takes full advantage of psychologically torturing his victims so they can't fight back, as Finn can only curl up and have a complete panic attack at his inevitable death. Just a reminder that Finn rarely, if ever, has become this thoroughly scared in the show. Like, this kid has fought so many monsters and abominations without thinking twice, is in the caldera of an active volcano and enjoyed the near-death experience. Volunteered to be bait for the vampires and never broke his resolve once, and had enough fearlessness and fortitude to defy the mental manipulation of the Lich, and even tried to get nut shots of the Vampire King. That kid was rendered practically catatonic by this cat. Think about it. And it's an incredibly tense and terrifying situation. There's something disturbing about having full sapience and yet animalistic viciousness. This cat is like a serial killer, relishing in their prey's fear and vulnerability and taking every ounce of pleasure before murdering them. And Finn technically never won. The only reason he survived was that he was saved by the guardian angel when his life was in immediate danger, finally feeling relieved that this was a tense scene, only to then reveal he was just taken by another predator. But at least the much more manageable one. Yeah, Finn never actually defeated this cat, but at least in Explore the Dungeon, he is the first boss so Finn can finally get the victory he deserved. But still, this cat is so unsettling through his performance, attitude, ferocity, and sheer sadism that I genuinely think he's one of the most unsettling monsters in Adventure Time and one of the most iconic. But we're not done yet. Now, the Scorcher. I kind of debated about his placement or if he counts as a monster, but he has so many unsettling qualities I feel that he really deserves to be up here. First hired by Ice King to be a hitman against Finn and Jake, but he didn't realize he hired an assassin, accidentally summoning the most powerful mercenary being we've ever seen in the show. This guy makes Meow feel like a joke. First off, we have no idea what the hell this guy even is. He could be from the Fire Kingdom, but that's not established, nor does he carry the traditional fire person traits. He could be a demon, but even then he doesn't carry traits. So it's completely up in the air, so this guy could very well be a monster in his own right. This dude's profile says he's relentless, and damn does he mean it. If anyone is marked for death, he will make sure that it happens. Even when the Hyrie doesn't want the hit anymore, even offering more money for not doing the job, he will refuse until they are decimated. He also somehow immediately knows where they are without being told. And this guy doesn't just go in guns blazing, he takes the most efficient routes, like setting the duo's house on fire with them in it or suffocating them in their sleep. You can't even get anyone else to defeat him, as he will instantly just take them out. He even tried going after Ice King for attempting to stop his job, eventually just giving up all pretenses and just straight up goes on the assault, chucking fireballs trying to burn them alive to kill them. He has some of the most powerful fire magic we've seen, second only to Flame Princess, and can become incorporeal, so there's nothing they can do to stop him. The only way he was stopped was by Ice King freezing them and stopping their heartbeats so Scorcher thinks they already died. This dude feels so much more different than any other Adventure Time villain or monster because he's scarily competent and humorless. He doesn't have that zany nature like everyone else does in the show. He doesn't speak at all, he just kills. Dude is basically a slightly less powerful version of the Lich. The only thing that has ever intimidated him is Golb, which did make him flee, but if the only thing shown that Shake of Resolve is the embodiment of chaos, the most powerful being in the show period, then that says a lot. This guy is so cool and it sucks that he never came back in a meaningful way, especially if he knew his quarry was still alive. But still, his sheer power, presence, and ruthless efficiency is something to be feared, which I feel gets him this high. The Fruit Witches. Yeah, these things will make your jaw drop with how they got away with it. Residing in Joshua's dungeon in the Flower Path, they inhabit a luscious scene of appetizing fruits on a table, the witches themselves looking like ethereal, beautiful ladies going visitors to partake of the fruit. All seems too good to be true. And it is, because if you eat the fruit, well... Holy sh**, that's messed up. So yeah, not only are they carnivorous, they're literally cannibalistic. And once feral, they will pursue anything else nearby to rip apart and consume. Like seriously, how did they get away with it? There's bones and gore inside. And to make matters worse, after Joshua mostly berated Finn to toughen him up, he was so hurt emotionally, he was willing to eat the cursed fruit and even just be torn apart by the sirens, and Jake had to just barely get him out of there. Also, the fact that any parent would put these things for their children to be up against seriously makes me question how good of a father Joshua was, like Jesus. Like seriously, just ugh. Next, what I consider to be the most disturbing species of monster in the show, the Oozers. The only thing more horrific than these things physically is their story. Disgusting, deformed abominations that have barely any sentience. They represent the horrors of the Mushroom War. It's implied they were the first, or at least one of the first mutations from the war. So mutated, they constantly ooze corrosive radioactive juices from their bodies, attacking in swarms with seemingly an endless amount of them. They're radioactive zombies, attacking anything and everything around them, seeming to consume them in absolute pain of their existence. They inhabit the ruins of cities after the war and were the threat to Simon and Marceline trying to survive the aftermath, with Simon needing the Ice Crown as the only form of protection from them, and why he was even forced to become the Ice King inevitably. They were living through The Last of Us, and they are seemingly biologically immortal, as in one of the tensest episodes of the show, James, Finn, Jake, PB, and James were trapped in a ship falling in a ditch as the Oozers reawakened from some form of hibernation and spent the whole episode trying to break in and devour them, continually being sabotaged by someone, accidentally protecting Among Us in the process.
Do you think James could be breaking things on purpose?
No, James wouldn't do that.
Wake up, dude's a saboteur.
It's not James.
What's not James?
Revealing that it was by PB who got James to sacrifice himself as it was the only way to escape. But even worse, showing that Oozers are completely like mutagenic zombies, as James became one of them and led them to try and destroy the Candy Kingdom, with the original James still showing some signs of sapience. What the hell?
Princess.
Original James?
Now all of that would get them this high, but it's the origins of them that truly make them the most disturbing species. They weren't monsters, these were humans. Not outright stated, but heavily implied, these were the first mutants of the Mushroom War. Humans horribly mutated by radiation to these horrific abominations in a living death, losing all their senses except for maybe a form of echolocation, as they are very sensitive to sound. That's where they're found in metropolitan areas, the places where the most humans would gather, and they continually hunt down and devour the remaining humans, being one of the prime reasons for humanity's near extinction and escape from the continent altogether.
But it's not just the vampires or the Oozers, or them hungry-looking rainbows.
It almost seems like many have a hint of it left, gasping and crying out for help. And again, they can't even die and are basically immortal. They actually might have been inspired by the feral ghouls in Fallout. Humans mutated by the immense radiation of post-nuclear war, becoming biologically immortal zombies, losing all sense of who they once were, and attack literally everything in sight. And that's not just me and my Fallout brain rot, the wiki literally says so. The Oozers are the most fundamentally disturbing monster species in the show in every aspect, from their design, origin, to even what they represent as an embodiment of the horrors of nuclear war. Ending off A tier with the Moon, the final member of the Vampire King's court, but potentially the most unassuming member aside from the Fool. They're completely silent in their introduction, never saying a word, but their power is incredible rapid healing, making them functionally unkillable. Like, seriously, I don't know how you can kill them. They heal from the sun and from staking. In the show, we see Marceline kill her by just sucking her up, which makes no sense since before they show you have to kill a vampire to absorb its essence, so she's cheating. But come on, look at her! She looks just like a nice, normal girl, just with an unfortunate case of forehead vagina. But her comments can come across as very creepy and unsettling, as well as her random mini limbs when chasing prey. But come on, I'm sure it's nothing. Oh, Jesus Christ!
That's her voice! How can you lead me when I am your kind?
Me no like! Run, Jake, run!
But to the last rank, the S ranks. These go beyond just monsters, just the single, most evil and threatening things in Adventure Time's universe. Not just monsters, but practically gods walking that make you feel terrified to inhabit the same world as them. Lastly, Keoth. Keoth doesn't feel like every other demon we see in the show. He's practically in a league of his own. He doesn't look or act like those goofs. He's a legitimate hostile demon. It's shown he's basically indestructible by most conventional means, as even the power of Ice King did nothing to stop him, which is actually insane if you think about it. Sure, he's shown to be a bit of a chump in the show, but that's literally if you have specific knowledge on to counteract him. Joshua was really only able to do so because he came in prepared knowing his summoning an expulsion spell and drinking an extraordinary amount of holy water.
I can't suck you. I'll suck myself.
Heyo! If you don't come and prepare with countermeasures, you're dead, and this dude doesn't hold back when given the opportunity. He threatened to straight up kill Ice King and Abracadaniel if they dare try to exile him like before, and forced Finn to break his coolest sword to regain his power, and then immediately kidnap Jake thinking he's Joshua to his dimension, throwing him in a pit and hoping to make him suffer and slowly die for revenge. Might have worked better if it, you know, wasn't Jake.
Okay, that's weird.
What's weird?
You want to get beat up? That's weird. I'm not doing your weird biz.
But the real thing that gets him this high is his ability as a blood demon. He can effortlessly suck someone's blood from their body to power himself. And he very easily did so to Jake, draining most of his blood that literally depowered him. And he could effortlessly do the same thing to most other people, killing them in seconds without even touching them. He only spared Jake to see him suffer. And you really need to go out of your way to have a chance of survival. I think Keoth is seriously underrated as a monster and downright blood-curdling in his element. Now, the Vampire King. This guy is undeniably one of the most powerful beings in this show and the driving force to humanity's near extinction. He has the biggest range of powers as a vampire aside from Marceline after absorbing the other core members, with incredible powers of telekinesis, telepathy, and teleportation. Basically, all of these make him practically untouchable. Even Marceline, at the peak of her power and ability, slaying the rest of the known vampires, had the most trouble with him, and realizing she would not stop until she destroyed his species, he willingly let himself be killed to curse Marceline with the same affliction for the rest of eternity. And even in the second fight after being revived, he could have easily destroyed all of them, but only played defensively when everyone else went on full-powered assault. Frankly, everyone else only survived because he let them survive and willingly gave up. The Vampire King is also very intelligent, but that makes him philosophical, in his revived era becoming nihilistic, seeing the pointlessness of the battle of light and dark and his own affliction to be separated from his vampiric essence. Even Marceline admits that the same cycle continues as he says,
"Do this, Marceline. Our lives are magnetized. We're in a negative loop. I have the power to change destiny. Either way, I will not bite. For turning you would subjugate me to the wheel of fortune."
And still carries it out, willingly depowering himself. But we see just how powerful his vampiric essence was released, the sheer power of evil and destruction that threatened to raise the entire world. All of that contained in the body and will of this one being. Again, the Vampire King could have been so much more of an active threat if he chose to be, and no one could stop it. Then we see the universe where he did. In Fiona and Cake, we see the alternative universe where Simon died and Marceline was raised by the Vampire King.
Vampire King, you're a bad dad.
took the crown for himself, creating thick clouds to blot out the sun and a vampiric empire of his own. He won and has destroyed the entire world where virtually all life is going extinct and any resistance is dealt with quickly and harshly. Also, just seeing Marceline become the monster she fought against is horrifying, learning how much of a threat she easily could have been. But even more than that, we constantly see the Ice Crown turns anyone who wears it insane and like Ice King. But the Vampire King is the only individual we've seen in the show who has suffered minimal mental or physical effects. He's so powerful that he is the only thing in the show that resists this reality warping force. It's insane. With this guy, the vampires were no doubt one of the most dangerous forces we've seen in the show, and he single-handedly elevated them to that level. Be glad fate turned out the way it did, because we saw what happened if it didn't.
Does Kitty want attention? Does she also seek annihilation?
Now, all these guys, they're still relatively mortal and earthly. How about a literal primordial monster that existed before time? Orgolorg is one of the primordial monsters that existed before the universe began. Admittedly, one of the smallest and most unassuming ones. These eldritch horrors are the source of all creation, so that's Kokonkepi, the first known wizard and source of magic in U. He is a cosmic horror that ruled solar system, destroyed planets, and was known as the Breaker of Worlds. With a special ability to absorb power, they take the power of a catalyst comic to become unstoppable, until being fought and defeated by Glob, the Guardian of Mars. His main weakness seems to be gravity, as being knocked to Earth's atmosphere crippled and compressed his form and erased his memory, coincidentally being compressed to a form exactly like an Earth penguin, living for millennia after millennia on Earth for taking the role as Ice King's main companion, Gunther, until a head injury awakens his dormant self, sending terror throughout the galaxy as Gunther is helpless, puppeting against an eldritch horror taking control of his body more and more. I had trouble understanding what was going on with him until I realized it's literally that a being who couldn't fully understand its true purpose, slowly being controlled and overtaken by a dark god to fulfill its task, and accepting the insidious nature of itself, making it a million times more creepy.
What am I doing? A fog shrouds my true intent even from myself. I am more than Gunther. Like a mighty chrysalis pushing out of a damp cocoon, I emerge. Especially once he remembered and knowing Glob died, that he's gonna try again and become all powerful, revealing his true horrifying form in the vacuum of space, a nasty shape-shifting monstrosity. Like, really, this thing makes me uneasy. From Orgolorg's history of cosmic crimes destroying entire planets and species on a whim, to his power level against cosmic gods, to the minute horror of Gunther losing control of his own body like he's being possessed, he has to get this high. If only they didn't give him the voice of Tom Kenny. Destroy worlds, crush anyone blocking the door, feel their bones crumple and their goo spill out.
But to end S tier, how can we get bigger than an actual planet-destroying monstrosity? How about Satan himself, Hunson Abadir? Yeah, aside from the Lich and arguably Golb, Hunson has to take the list. Claimed to be completely, unapologetically evil, he rules over the Nightosphere, the actual equivalent of hell in the universe, spending all his time torturing and mutilating the demons and souls that find themselves there for basically all of eternity. But God forbid if someone summons him to the real world, as being unbounded, he will immediately go and suck the souls of every living being in his vicinity, without any remorse or mercy. This dude literally wants to kill all life on Earth. He's basically the Lich in another form. In fact, he's the closest thing to them in power level and considers it his rival. He can't even be killed, as Marceline acknowledges that he's deathless and will literally keep going till he kills everyone, relishing in pure sadism and fear of his victims.
To be alive?
Yeah, I guess. So what?
So, this next part will be all the more horrifying. What wears a dark suit is completely evil and is about to suck out all your souls.
You can't really defeat him. You just hope you can maim him temporarily and summon him back to the Nightosphere. Not to mention his horrible true form. That weird little businessman look isn't his real body. His real form is this giant horror whose head looks especially like a butt. He was the first real threat in the show that endangered the entire world, only rivaled by the Lich later in the season. And he is somehow even aware of Orgolorg and wanted to take a soul for his own.
History's greatest monsters, you are by far the most evil thing I've encountered. Offer your soul to me, Dark One.
Hunson doesn't know his own origin, implying that he is primordial, but it seems that he has held most of his demonic essence in the Nightspheric amulet, that bestows upon its wearer the same overflowing chaotic energy that comprises him, turning them to a dark god too with incredible power, as Marceline wearing it became a violent, vicious, sadistic, superpowered monster just like Hunson, without any of the rationality, turning on her friends and trying to kill them. Similar thing with Finn forced to wear it, only be able to hold his sanity for a few seconds, turning into a Binding of Isaac boss, before being consumed and lashing out. Like, God, look at this thing! Hansen is almost entirely devoid of empathy, taking complete pleasure of sadism and torture of demons or other life, and kills without remorse. Willingly forcing the Nightosphere amulet on his own daughter without telling her, and immediately trying to suck Finn's soul as soon as he heard he was super good. In fact, in extended lore, it's said that one of the reasons why Marceline detests her dad so much was because when he was summoned, he literally killed all her friends without a second thought.
Stuff like this.
The only redeeming quality he has is that he does genuinely love his daughter, but struggles a lot with lack of said empathy to living beings. He has trouble understanding and relating to human emotions, but wants what's best for her, even accepting that he was in the wrong to forcing the amulet on her, and just thought she'd be better off as the ruler of the Nightosphere. And at least during the course of the show, Hansen did become a better person and better dad to her. But still, regardless of that, it's no surprise that Hansen Abadir, Satan himself, ruler of the Nightosphere and devourer of souls, will get to the top of S tier. But no, come on. We all know what's really the most disturbing monster in this show. The deer. Or as Jay calls it, free deer! This thing legitimately traumatized millions and contributed to what's widely known as Adventure Time's creepiest episode, No One Can Hear You. Starting out of nowhere, Finn and Jake desperately trying to stop a deer in the Candy Kingdom, as the thing gives Jake a concussion and breaks Finn's legs in this scene. And then knocks him out, putting him in a coma for an unknown amount of time, waking up in a cast finding the entire kingdom mysteriously abandoned. The only thing around is Jake, who now has brain damage after the incident and has gone completely insane, thinking everyone is gone for a surprise party. Finn can't even rationalize with Jake in this state, and is so in his deluded fantasy, he refuses to let Finn investigate the sounds he hears underground, and has to actually escape and run away from him, revealing it's actually been 6 months as Finn is horrified. Escaping in the sewers to find all the Candy Kingdom trapped in slime, wailing in agony. Thinking that Jake did this, Finn beats him up and restores his mental state somehow, as Jake's horrified to see what he did, as Peppermint Butler groans out that he didn't do it. Then leading to the episode's most unsettling moment.
It was him.
Holy that thing's so damn creepy! Literally trying to kill them with their bare hands until Jake crushes its skull with cinder blocks and the candy people toss him to the sewer. Just, what is this episode? It's so unsettling and disturbing. The creepy ambience of the scene and location, the mystery of what happened, seeing one of the main characters so insane and delusional is so incredibly tense and creepy. And that deer really emphasized it. It's so uncanny with its upright posture and front-facing eyes like a predator, and taking off its two revealing human hands. We have no idea where it came from or why it did all this demented. All we get is that PB says it wanted their sugar, so it somehow single-handedly captured and imprisoned every single candy person, including PB and Peppermint Butler, and someone got past the Gumball Guardian. So damn creepy! In fact, it's likely based off a particular cryptid. The not deer. Like the name suggests, they're said to be deer, but something is wrong about them in appearance and attitude, with people citing them saying they do things like standing on their hind limbs, having forward-facing eyes like a skinwalker, trying to look like a deer but not getting it right. And that's exactly what the freak deer is like. It's the uncanny valley personified. It's familiar but so off in so many ways, with no actual explanation. It contributes to why this episode is so infamous for being Adventure Time's most disturbing episode. I remember just praying that thing died as a kid so it never shows up again. Spoilers, it did. Its appearance, purpose, and history is so mysterious and unsettling that it legitimately disturbed nearly every viewer who watched it. Like, legitimately. Ask around, people say this damn thing traumatized them. And that makes it, by far, the most disturbing Adventure Time monster. So now we're finally done. Man, this list was a lot longer than I thought. But wow, Adventure Time has some seriously cool monsters. Like really, some of these are totally underrated in a fantasy world and should be talked about more. It helps in a way with Adventure Time's complexity. Sure, it looks silly and stupid on the outside, but inside there's so much more complexity, nuance, and downright disturbing and horrific matter. A ton of dark lore implications, plots, and characters help the show to feel more adult than people would think. And I'm glad to finally give them some attention because honestly, they're really underrated in how they make Adventure Time Adventure Time. But even with how long this list was, I'm sure there are people who say I missed some, so please tell me any I missed down below, or what you feel about these guys. But yeah, this took a lot out of me, so I'm gonna get some rest. See you guys later. Oh, Glob, no!
Wait, hold on a second.
Okay, what?
You can't just throw a giant monster into a story because you're stuck for an ending. It's lazy. It's lazy writing.